What is it about me that allows me to see in you what bugs me about you? It's an inside job. Fundamentally, to say that you made me do this is a fallacy. And so we like to hang out with people who don't tell us that. They make it easy for us. I was heading to meet my mom. It's a T-bone. As I make the left, you choose not to go to the stop sign and actually hit me. I was looking you eye to eye. There was recognition, and you stood drove away. What the heck was that? How could he do that? Years ago, I happened to be working at the Hawaiian Nature Center, and we had a wall that was leaking. I just jumped in. I saw this debris, and I had to avoid the debris. When I landed, my foot went that way, and my body went the other way, and I heard boom, I could feel it. I knew something had happened with my knee. But the minute I lay down, in my mind, it was clear that this was Pono. Because at the time, I was already engaged in the exchange and training of Ho'oponopono. I sit at many tables, and oftentimes there will be some aggression verbally. As a facilitator, the conscience in the room is being able to diffuse the energies that could lead to conflict, but to be able to bring that back to what we call Pono, something that is much more agreeable. Essentially, agree to disagree without being disagreeable. I think about my daughter. She lost her grandfather. The year later, her grandmother transitions. Right after that, her mother-in-law, and then her mom. That's a lot for one person to deal with. But to see that fortitude, and I like to think because we provided her with a safe place and know that she was loved when she was younger. I told her, there are going to be days when you and I are not going to agree. In fact, you might be angry at me, and me and you, but I'll always love you. The permission to make mistakes, because it's okay. I thank my parents for that, because that's what they did for us. As one Pono said, when there's peace in the heart, there's peace in the person. There's peace in the person, peace in the home and the family, peace in the community, peace in the world. It's all an inside job. And so we have to be conscious of what's going on around us, but we're defining all of that from inside out. And it starts with love, to be connected. And when you don't know, ask. Ask your kupuna. Ask those that have experienced it, but ask the source.
Greater Good Radio, connect, learn, heal, and grow, is brought to you by Brain Gain Hawaii, a boutique executive recruiting, career development, and coaching firm. Learn more at braingainhi.com. Welcome to Greater Good Radio. Today's guest is Kumu Ramsay Taum.
Thank you. Good to see you. It's been a while.
I don't know if you remember this, but we initially met at Premier Realty 2000.
I do. I'll never forget it.
Like both of us never have gray hair.
I know. 20 years younger,
for me, about
20
30 pounds ago.
Later, yeah.
What do we do? Now, as you asked me, I'm interested to hear more about like who you are, you know what I mean? Your being and so on. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So how would you introduce yourself into a space?
Well, I like to say that my parents call me son.
Okay.
Yeah, my daughter calls me dad. And I hope my granddaughter will feel comfortable calling me anytime she wants. Well, my students tend to call me Kumu. And that's the title, which was given to me by my teachers, my elders. And it's something my students defer to me as. That's if they're learning anything.
So are they like actual like formal students? Like these are ones that come into a classroom or something? Or
yeah, in different venues. Yeah. So I've been affiliated with the university system for a while as an adjunct professor, and in this case as a director of the Pacific Island Leadership Institute at Hawaii Pacific University. So the students include your traditional students who go through classes, but the majority of them today tend to be in business, corporate students, private students, and then through various organizations who are looking at cultural alignment. Yeah. So a lot of that comes through the teaching of Ho'oponopono, or the sharing of. I don't know if you can teach it, but you can share it. Ho'oponopono and the Hawaiian battle system of Lua, a combination. So they come in immersions and trainings like that. So in the fact that they're learning something, the reference to Kumu.
Does Ho'oponopono and Lua have stuff in common, or is it kind of at separate ends though, right? Because Lua, to me, is more like battle, and Ho'oponopono is more like forgiveness.
Yeah, but at the end of it, the both intentions is to find balance. So they're kind of opposite ends of the same coin. Yeah.
Same intention, different impact.
Right. And everything is intention, right? So if my intention is to fight, that's one thing. But if my intention is to protect, that's another. And that's the principle of Lua for me and the way I was trained, which is consistent with Ho'oponopono, which is that finding alignment where there's misalignment. And it's not necessarily making things right. Right or wrong is, relative. but really what's proper, what's pono, what's appropriate for the moment. It's all contextual. And so Lua as a battle system, you could engage fighting, but the intention is really to protect, right? Whether it's your family, your country, or whatever that is. I mean, when we look at our history, there was a time period when we went to war. The purpose was, why do you go to war? To bring balance. Either you don't have enough resources, or you weren't able to negotiate it because your oratory skills were lacking, or you just couldn't convince somebody.
What about like just to take over someone else's stuff so you can have it? Is that balanced then, or
I think people do that regardless of what
like
form of
like
system.
power, right? It's like
Yeah, it's power.
Yeah.
So there is that battle component, and why that's important is because it's not necessarily a martial art. It's a battle system. It's a combat system, which is why it's not something you want to teach everybody or anybody. But more importantly, the underlying principles of healing, the underlying principles of protection, that's a different mindset. So before I was given permission, right, to actually break, because in Lua there's bone breaking, muscle manipulation, joints, nerves, as well as spiritual. It was necessary to go learn the principles of healing first. Now, was that the plan? Was that something I wanted to do? No. If you asked me all those years ago, is that what my intention was? I was just there to learn, and in most cases help the kupuna that I was helping, who then in turn saw an empty coconut and they said, we need to fill this up. So no, I didn't have an interest in breaking bones, but in the process of learning how to heal bones through kupuna like Uncle Tommy Solomon.
So it's like la'au lapa'au kind, or for
la'au
healing
lapa'au,
bones, or
and
what?
This one was called lomihaha, which is like palpation, understanding bones. So you have the la'au,
like manipulation of the structure so that it can heal.
Yeah, more like massage.
Oh.
But it's also the idea of being able to diagnose, right? Being able to touch, feel, understand. And if you're in the battlefield, go back a century, you want to be able to heal yourself and your comrades in the event of injury. So la'au lapa'au medicines, understanding those are important, but also be able to set a bone, reestablish circulation. You have a knot in your shoulder to be able to address.
So that's part of Lua, was the healing of the bones first,
Yeah, I
and
had to
then
learn that
and then the
first.
break. Oh, interesting.
Right. So it wasn't until 1994, 95, I was given permission by Aloha Solomon Kaivalu. In fact, he asked me, hey, take over the school. I want you to do this. I had to give myself permission. 2 years. It took me almost 2 years to actually do it. How do you bring back an ancient, hidden, lost art and say, yeah, come join me. Let me show you how to break bones. It was very uncomfortable.
How do you even practice that? Because, I mean, by practicing, you got to break someone's bones?
Well, I mean, you could say the same about first aid. You don't have to cut somebody's arms to
Okay.
learn how to bandage a wound. It's just about intention and with discernment. I've been doing this, maybe 30 plus years now. I haven't broken a bone intentionally, injured one of my students, unless they, of course, chose to do something that they weren't supposed to do in the process of doing a technique.
Like they did something wrong and then accident.
Well, yeah, they're stepping in and doing things and using their own mind, trying to do something. I said, here's the demonstration, and then they moved in the wrong way. Even that wasn't serious.
So is there a spiritual aspect to breaking bones then?
I think the spiritual aspect is how you engage an attack, or how you welcome what we might define as an attack. That spirituality is what it is. Same like food, whether you're going to eat poison or if you're going to eat something nutritious. How you approach that exercise. So similarly, if someone's throwing a punch at me, our definition of that is shifted. You're not throwing a punch at me. I'm receiving food that you're giving to me. So in the Hawaiian principle of Lua, we're talking about everything coming at me as ai, which is food. But ai is also to feed as much as it is to receive nutrition. So if you're throwing it at me, I'm going to receive it because it's obviously a gift. You don't throw food away. But as I receive that, I'm also going to give it back to you, which is aloha, the principle of receiving and giving. So when you reframe that from a spiritual standpoint, you're not out to break a bone, but you're going to suggest that anything that comes inside this space, in the same way that a meat grinder would, it doesn't care what it is. It just does what it does. And the Lua principle is the same thing. You learn to protect the space, not against a particular thing.
So is it protection, or is it kind of like you taking it and sending it back out?
Well, the first step is if it's coming at me
Yeah.
or my protectee.
Yeah.
My intention is to protect myself as well as that person. But the intention is not only I'm going to receive it, but I'm going to send it back because I want to keep things whole. So this is aloha. Aloha is the principles of maintaining wholeness, while the term lua is about a hole, a pit, right? So there's a little double entendre there.
Does that mean then aloha is kind of like almost has like yin and yang?
Absolutely.
You have a feminine energy, you have a masculine energy. It's not only I receive and love and so on.
Yeah, I mean, if your son's walking into the street, grab him by the ear, right? Hey, get off the road. That's aloha, right? It's a little yang. But you tell him, sweetheart, don't go on the road. That's yin. They both aloha. But you have to figure out, I got to protect you from yourself and for someone else. You're unconscious right now. You're walking. I'll grab you by the ear, come in, right? That type of thing. So to someone who's not familiar with that, oh, look, that guy's being rough with his kids. But that's to protect my son or daughter or a loved one from getting injured. Yeah. So there is that process. But it's more mana. Aloha is an overarching principle. But when we look at the term mana, which is passive, masculine, active, it's that exchange of receive with ma and extend with na. That would be a more appropriate description of.
So the root pieces of mana is ma and na?
Yeah, you can break it down like that. So the Hawaiian language, the way I was trained through kupuna, that it's really a spiritual language. It's an elemental language. So when you look at na and ana, there's two words or three words. They're rooted vowels, spiritual sounds. So ma is more passive, more towards me, like mauka. You live mauka, makai, into the directional. So when you say ma, you're really talking about this way. Mahalo, makai, mauka. And then na is more active, more external. It's more plural. So you put the two together, you have soft heart, past, future, mana. And then the root word anna, A-N-A, it means to demonstrate, to teach, to model. It also refers to a cave, a dark place that you come out for enlightenment. So these are the metaphors that are built into the language. So mana is much like that. It's the life energy that's in all things, but it comes from within. It's not something you really generate. People say, Kumu, how do you generate mana, chi, or those things? You don't really generate it. You really access it. It's like a fish in the ocean. It's not generating water, but it's accessing the water. So your mana, I'm mana, how much mana we actually execute or share or access really has to do with our focus, training.
Back in the day, if you cannot look at ali'i because you're going to take their mana. So how does that work with that then? If it's not generated, it's just kind of transferring through.
Well, it's kind of like a battery, right? So I plug it in, the battery charges, I hold that, and I can charge my phone later on. Yeah, that's mana. So your bones is like the battery, and I can store mana in that battery.
So you channeling it, mana? It channels through, or it's like stored?
You can do that. I can show it to you. It's rather quick, actually.
Okay.
You want to do it?
Let's
I'll
do
show
it.
it to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So basically, in our principle, I want to store mana in my joints in different places. So it's like, imagine this the battlefield. I have a camp over here, I have a camp over here, right? If I lose this camp, I still got mana over here. This is like gas stations. So I want to be able to access the mana wherever I need it and send the mana where I need it. So like chi, or ki, prana, right? That's our terminology. But I should be able to call upon it. I don't have to spend a lot of time in meditation. That's what you do all the time anyway. I should be living in a living meditation. And if that's the case, then I should be able to call upon and generate it. So is this a good place? Let me show you. You can reach across it. So all I'm going to have you do is stick your two fingers like that inside this puka. All right? And then you're going to pull them apart. And what I'm going to demonstrate is just...
Let's pull them like this?
Okay, I'm just going to, without any energy, I'm not going to use any muscle. I'm just going to relax. Go ahead.
Let me see. Wait, let me try to see.
Okay, so people will see that, right? So it's just light, no resistance. One more time.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to give you some resistance. Okay, go.
Okay.
You feel? So that's my muscle. And I'm just going to pulse it so you see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now when you turn the mana on, think of my thumb as being plus and my forefinger as minus. Go ahead.
Okay.
Right, go ahead. See, so I'm completely relaxed. I'm not making any intention to resist you. Pull harder. So the harder you pull, do you feel it? What does it feel the difference between what I was doing before?
Like you were putting effort.
I'll give you effort again.
Okay.
Ready? Go. You feel that? Okay, now here's mana. Go. Pull hard, ma.
Yeah.
Feel the difference?
Yeah.
So I'm not doing anything externally to plug into the wall. You're already connected, and all you do is open the gate. So in the same way that I would say my thumb is the positive pole and my forefinger is the negative pole on a battery, plus minus, you turn them upside down and you got a charge. So when you can develop that capacity, now I can flow the mana. Now I can flow the mana for healing purposes, or I can flow the mana for other purposes. It's all intention. The key is, can we operate with intention rather than from tension? And I think that's the skill set, and that's what we're trying to achieve when we learn Ho'oponopono, or we apply Ho'oponopono, as well as Lua. Yeah.
So your two primary kind of like strategies is Ho'oponopono and Lua.
Well, I think in a world where there seems to be a lot of tension, right? The terminology we use tends to be warlike. Anyway,
Yeah.
You got to fight for this, and
Like protection.
target audiences, and we have this tendency to look at everything as a war, as a fight and battle. Yet we're all trying to find peace. We want abundance, yet we focus on scarcity. It's just this odd thing that we're living in. And so my intention really is in all things I do, which is a promise I made to Pilahi Paki, who I refer to as Auntie Pilahi because of my relationship with her. Before her transition, I said, everything and anything I'm doing, I will promote and advocate Aloha, which was her concern before her transition back in 1985. And she was concerned that Aloha, the principle, the essence of reciprocity, of living in good relation with the place, one another, that we would lose that essence. We would use the word, as we see the word everywhere, right? But we lose the true meaning of it. So much of my focus in whatever I was doing professionally was always rooted with those principles in mind of Aloha, making things right, which is Ho'oponopono. And when addressing anything that appears to be combative, to apply the Lua principles, not in a physical way, but in a spiritual way, right?
Like what you mean?
Well, I sit at many tables. I've been fortunate that way. And oftentimes there will be some aggression verbally, right? Or
with each other,
or
against
with
you?
people. Not necessarily me alone, but as a facilitator, which is what I get called upon a lot to do, right? And short of becoming Jiminy Cricket, the conscience in the room, is being able to diffuse the energies that could lead to conflict, but to be able to bring that back to what we call Pono, something that is much more agreeable. Essentially, agree to disagree without being disagreeable. So when I find myself in those situations, and I'm often brought into situations like that, the principles of Ho'oponopono on one hand, while you have Lua on the other, which is, how do I receive what you just gave me and be able to respond by providing you something of greater or equal value? This is the release and replace principles. If I can let go of my anger and replace it with something greater, such as Aloha, I can maintain my wholeness and hopefully help you maintain your wholeness, because clearly this dispute is coming from a place of lacking. I need more from you, you need more from me, I'm not having enough. But if we can find enough, maybe we can find some common space. So those are the underlying principles to the concepts of facilitation.
In something like that, I kind of feel like it's the connection, right? Establishing a connection initially.
I think it's also trying to understand the root of the pilikia. That's a problem. And I found over the years that many disputes, or what they call disagreements, are really based on unexpressed expectations. You and I never had an agreement in the first place. And yet we're disagreeing
Like an
about
implicit
something.
expectation you're talking about, right?
Precisely. Or even couples. Interesting how the word martial and marital are kind of the same word, just flip around a couple letters. But I find in relationships, somebody is willing to extend themselves for a certain period of time to assist the other. Living two realities, two truths, your truth, my truth. But for the time being, I'm here to support your truth. And at some point in time when that breaks down, my truth isn't in alignment anymore. That's when the the problems. Because we never really established what our truth is. And so when we know what we want to do versus what I'm going to do with you, then all of a sudden we can start coming to some agreement finally. But many people enter into these long-term agreements never really agreeing on we, but agreeing on me. You, me, but never really us. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes to larger organizations, communities, and not just individuals. So when you can step back and look at that and even ask a simple question, really, I will reframe it the way Auntie Morna used to, about what am I seeing in front of me? It understands that everything's a mirror. We're a mirror of one another, a reflection.
Oh, yeah.
And so if we subscribe to that, then the question is, what is it about me that allows me to see in you what bugs me about you? It's an inside job.
Yep.
Fundamentally, to say that you made me do this is a fallacy.
Yeah.
But we've learned...
Projecting the part of me that I don't accept and seeing it in you.
You just showed me what I don't like about myself.
Shut you down.
That's right.
To shut me down.
Yeah. And so we like to hang out with people who don't tell us that. They make it easy for us. But the truth tellers are the ones who stand in front of us and reflect back to us what we don't like about ourselves. Now, that's not to say that there aren't a bunch of knuckleheads out in the world. But the question now comes up. Why am I attracted to knuckleheads? Right? Or are knuckleheads attracted to me? What is it about me that I brought to this situation that continues to bring this issue up?
So tell me, if you take in that vein, right?
Yeah.
Of that, are you able to share a personal story where you saw that happening to yourself and you went, oh?
Yeah, there are 2 or 3, actually. Years ago, I happened to be working at the Hawaii Nature Center as the operations director. And we had a wall that was leaking. So I was out there exploring and to kind of discover what was going on. And all of a sudden, the wall started to collapse. And because of my martial arts and athletics, I said, no problem, I just jump in, roll. Well, I saw this debris and I had to avoid the debris. So when I landed, my foot went that way and my body went the other way. And I heard boom, I could feel it all the way to the top of my head. So I knew something happened with my knee. But the minute I lay down, I got on the ground, in my mind, it was clear that this was Pono. This was proper, appropriate. Why? Because at the time, I was already engaged in the exchange and training of Ho'oponopono. The principle of Pono is to be in the right place at the right time for my good and the good of others. At that moment, I knew that was Pono. Leading up to it, I had been praying a quiet prayer to get off this rat race. I could feel my foot on the pedal, speeding down the freeway of life and realizing I can't take my foot off the pedal. All of the metrics of success that I was enjoying at the time were taking me down this path. And internally, I understood this is risky. Not that I was doing anything really risky, but I was just moving very quickly. I was sitting on numerous boards at the time, every board but a surfboard, never bored. But the reality was I was pushing, I was moving, I was tracking all of these different aspirations and the things that you're supposed to be doing. But internally, I know there was no balance. So my prayer for Pono was that, how do I get off this? How do I stop this? Because for some reason, I can't on my own. I felt like somebody pushed me off the wall, but the wall collapsed. And that's when I knew it was Pono. Because at that moment, my life changed. It was my right knee. Esoterically, we look at directional pivots, right? That was a pivotal moment in my life. I got up off the ground, couldn't walk, and realized this is Pono. I ended up in the hospital having to have surgery. Did I want any of that? Absolutely not. But did I ask for it? Certainly did. Did my life change? Absolutely. It changed for the better. I can honestly say I didn't injure anyone else in the process.
It changed for the better, meaning what? What happened?
Meaning that had I continued on that path, the likelihood of doing injury, mentally, emotionally, physically, to someone else,
or to
whether
yourself,
it was my family or to myself,
yeah,
was much greater. So in this case, I will say divinity, the kupuna, the elders, they found a kind way to slow me down. So in other words, the message to me was, boy, take a knee. There was humility in that. There's humbling experience of being on the ground, on my knee, and literally taking my future, the right side, esoterically, and saying, you got to shift, bro. So it was a pivotal moment.
That would be koho'ia or what?
That's one way of looking at it. Yeah, you could say that.
Destiny chooses you. When John DeFries and I were talking about it, it's like getting voluntold by the universe.
Yeah.
Right?
I think there is that. But I think you can also surrender and you can actually offer yourself to that. Because I think the universe wants to support you. And if you want to fight it, then it gets tough.
Yeah.
Right? But I think to this extent, I had already surrendered. Just didn't know how to raise the flag. Actually take the steps to do it.
Gave you some help.
It gave me some help.
Right? Like you're not doing it yourself, so we'll give you a little bit of help.
And I think in many ways, we go through these episodes in our lives And if you can lay it out in that perspective, then you can thank the knucklehead in front of you for showing you something about yourself that caused you to move, to quit, to leave, to do something. That 10 years later, you realize, wow, I'm exactly where I want to be because of that chucklehead 10 years ago, or that incident that made me move because I couldn't do it on my own at the time. Some of us haven't really developed the capacity to say, I'm done, or this isn't serving me or you. So rather than wait for you to fire me, right, or to create a condition that causes me to move because I can't make the decision on my own, which is a tendency. People will create a reason or an excuse because they can't operate on the reasons that they have. I really don't like this, but I don't have the courage to really tell the people that. I want to get out. I don't know how. And so we create conditions in our lives that do it for us.
So you knew that right when you ate it and your knee was bust? Then you knew right there, like, okay, okay.
Yeah, I landed on the ground and I got
So you didn't
up.
fight it? You didn't fight it?
No.
You would have fought it before when you were younger?
Oh, yeah. A couple of years ago, I had a slip and fall, which is kind of embarrassing for me. There's so much water on the ground that when I put my hands down, I just slid. There's just nothing, no traction. Dislocated my shoulder. Boom, right? Ooh. So I had the capacity to relocate it. And it just so happened that the fire chief that responded, the EMT, happened to be one of my students. So he ends up helping me, and I get to ER. They take an x-ray. The doc says, Mr. Taum, when did you break your shoulder? I said, I've never broken my shoulder. She goes, that's not what the x-ray says. So she showed me the x-ray. I had healing patches. The body just re-healed the wound. She goes, that's a break. And at some point in time in the past, this is an old break. You broke your shoulder.
Like the bone, or it's like a rotator?
The joint, inside the joint. There was a crack.
Oh, wow.
And it fused by itself, whatever. Now, I recall having some difficulty, but I worked through it. I'm going to do this, the tough guy routine. And that was years and years ago. But I didn't know it because I just overrode it. So to answer your question, yeah, I probably would have just got up and started walking. But in this case, there was nothing left for me to walk on. I stood up and I collapsed again. I said, okay, this is it.
How about in the past when you're fighting it and then you had a point of realization?
Well, when you're fighting it, you can, what I call rational lie. That's part of the conscious mind's ability to rational lie to ourselves. Oh, I'll get past this, or I'll take a Tums later, I'll take an aspirin later, right? These rational lying to ourselves. So I think that's what I would have been doing back then, which was probably what happened with me.
Can you remember one when you were younger? And so it escalates until it's like, oh.
Not really, because I guess I was in that conscious space of just pushing through it all the time, right? Because I had to.
And then that's where it culminated, though, with falling in. Because you would have pushed through whatever before that then.
That's right.
Until it's like, oh, okay, now I'm listening. Yeah.
And it took a degree of maturity to really begin to recognize when versus if. I pretty much live a life of when now rather than if. And I try to share that with others. If you're preparing yourself for when, it means...
Is that aho nui?
The aho nui is about patience and tolerance and temperament. Nui is to wait, persevere. It's kind of like that. But there's also akahai, right? There's about gentle and kindness. You got to be kind to yourself in the process. But it acknowledges this higher purpose, this higher intention. And I think that makes the difference. Focus, intention.
Have you ever had a koho'ia kind of moment where it's like, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing and I have to be doing?
The day I was sitting with Aloha Kaihewalu, he's the grandmaster of the Kaihewalu Lua system, which I have now kuleana for, at least here in Hawaii. He's got other instructors elsewhere. As I was telling you, I was trying to give myself permission. He had already given me permission. Tipilahi and Timorna, other kupuna, had given me permission. Actually, a direction. Go teach. Go share this. This is not for the cookie jar, right? You got to share this. But when it came to Lua, it was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Why?
Well, because it's an ancestral practice. We thought, at least many of us thought it was gone. And it was kind of ho'okano,
I don't want to make like that.
Who you think you can break my bone? Right? Why you? That kind of stuff, right? And in his case, that's his family system. I get it. But so now you going to start teaching this? Where do you do that? YMCA. Open your own school. Come, let me teach you how to break bones. It's a little arrogant. To me, it was like, wow, this is kind of rough. This is an old, ancient, this is really for family, right? Real close stuff. And I had a real difficult time. In fact, I have some students that were with me at the time, and They're going, well, it's Kumu, when are you going to start teaching? So he and I, Aloha, sat together one day and we're talking. And he was trying to get me out of the saddle. Let's go, boy, let's ride. So while we're talking, he flashed his hand to me. He's showing me a movement. And at the corner of my eye, I said, hey, Aloha, show me your hand. So he opened his left hand. And from his thumb to his baby finger across was a straight line. Like somebody took a knife and just cut the line. So in my mind, in the Hawaiian fractal mind principles, I recognize the left as being the past, your kupuna, our ancestors, the feminine. So here he was, this kupuna, living his family's tradition, holding on to the past in his left hand. So I opened my hand and I put it next to his, straight line.
Oh.
Is it?
Yeah.
So his thumb to my thumb, straight line. His left to my left. So I had my hand in front of it, and he put his hand next to mine. And it was like, boop. He's holding on to the past. He's passing it on to me. That was an instant. So I said, Aloha, show me your right hand. Same. Like a mirror. His right hand, same idea. So I put my right hand next to his.
You were born with that? Or that's like the line or what?
It's always been that way.
Huh.
Right? So his both hands and my hands together.
Yeah.
Straight line. So in the right, for us, the philosophy is the right is your future. Your kupuna is the left, the mo'opuna is the right. And so he was now passing the future responsibilities of his family system to me, as other kupuna had as well. So in that moment, it was like, okay, I guess it's literally in my hands. It's my kuleana. It's not something I can throw away, short of cutting my hands off. Because every time I look at my hand, I'm reminded. So what's interesting is that Ho'oponopono isn't about alignment. Lua is about alignment. Essentially getting in line.
And what do you mean alignment?
Meaning getting in line. I mean, you have two concepts. When you're out of line, broken line, energy doesn't have a place to go. So philosophically, if you don't have a purpose today, just get in line. What does that do? It gives your ancestors a purpose.
It gives an opportunity to channel properly.
Yeah, because whatever they're sending down the line, that's a broken line. Energy is like a waterfall, gone.
And then how do you get into alignment?
Well, one, stepping into the line. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you're not there.
How you know if you're there or not there?
Well, that's interesting. That's when things are pono. When things seems to be flowing, you have no idea why. Everything just happens to be flowing, which is really a hard question for some people. Most of us don't know we're pono till we're not. Everything was going fine. I'm in the river, everything. Next thing you know, you're on the bank. Your boat's going down the hill. How to get back in the boat? But while you're in it, sometimes we just take it for granted. We don't realize the blessings and the gifts that we have in that moment. Take it for granted. Boom, next thing you know, you're out on the road. You can't go back. You got to go forward. And that's what Ho'oponopono is. You have to look to healing and a preferred condition rather than fixing a bad one. So alignment is really about how do you create the preferred condition. And in this case, my ancestors had something in mind, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm the destination for that. If I'm not in line, then my descendants don't have anything to look back to. Mm-hmm. So my kupuna have purpose, and now my descendants have a reason. This is why we're like this, because of that. They can look back, oh, kupuna was this way. He didn't or didn't, had no, right? So you have these two ends. When you step in line, now you give that purpose. You may have no other purpose that day, that moment, but by stepping in line, you've given purpose to the spectrum. So it's an important concept because many of us walk around without purpose. We're looking for externalities to give us definition. And what I've come to understand, at least through these practices, is that if you're relying on externalities to define your identity, you're really a victim in many ways of those externalities. If you decide you don't want to like me, and I'm relying on you to like me, myself, then I'm a victim of that. I've created my own victimhood. If I have to wait for someone to apologize, or if I wait too long and don't get to apologize and they leave, I'm stuck living with that guilt, and we transfer that from one generation to the next. That's an externality framing my internal compass and identity.
When was a time you felt the most out of alignment? And then the point where you realized it, and then how did you get back into alignment?
I think the biggest one was the time when we had the fiscal shift in the economy. I was enjoying a lot of contracts.
Like what year would that be?
What was that, 2008? And I had agreed to be on a board, a corporate board, and to receive compensation for that. I ended up giving up some of my other clients or not renewing contracts. Well, it turns out these guys stopped paying to the tune of about $150,000, which meant $300,000 because I had to cover that. The consequences of that, not only placing stress on myself, but my family, as well as my relationships. So now you start going through the gyrations and gymnastics mentally of shoulda, coulda, woulda, what if I had, what I do, those kinds of things. And it actually led to a situation where I had to make a decision. Do I do this or do I do that? And it led to bankruptcy. Well, for my mind, it was like, how embarrassing is that? But in that moment, it was humbling, but it was also healing. All of the things that we had held in my mind. But that was the course we took because the family was in the situation.
Why was it healing?
Because I could let it go, right? I had to let it go.
Because even though I'm in this position, I still get family. I'm still alive, like that?
There is that too, right? Because I realized that all of these things that were bothering me were self-imposed.
Oh.
Because you're living the aspirations of others. And it really made sense to me then that if your reality is the product of other people's illusions, then their dreams become your nightmares. And I was living a nightmare based on the illusions I was having based on what others were saying. But it wasn't the first time I had to experience it where I had to step away, not quit, but step to something rather than away from something. This was probably the most dynamic because where I was, what I was doing, and my own perception, as well as what others were expecting of me at the time. It was like a real slap in the head. And it doesn't just go away. You have to live with that decision. It was a decision that had to be made. Others have made it, but I wasn't proud of it. But at that moment in time, I've seen other people jump off buildings.
Yeah.
And that's not an answer. So it really forced me to look at myself. It really forced me to look at the entire system. Why is this pressure here? What is this all about? What is reality? And so this is when you find out the difference between monetization and monetization. Money or mana. My mana account was really low as a result. So my money account was low. And once I started rebuilding my mana, then things started returning. But it was a drain on my spirit. That was a tough one.
Did you feel like you got it back into full alignment at some point or not?
I think we're working on it every day. Everything is in entropy. And what we're doing is we're maintaining enough inertia to keep lifting it. And by doing things that lifting others, lifts you. It's a concept of expansion.
So what was like the turning point or some kind of lesson in that made the difference for you?
The recovery was difficult. One, because it's the internal. But then the reality is you have your cup. You're ready to go to the pond, but there's no water in the pond. So even your intention to do well in an empty pond, what do? So that's when I had to turn back to source. And really, as much as I was speaking it, thought I was living it, to really connect back to source and acknowledge abundance rather than continue focus on scarcity.
What did you do to do that? What do you mean?
It was an internal process.
Oh.
It was really an acknowledgement of letting go and redefining. And I would say there's three things.
Like through a meditation, sitting alone, or you went into nature?
It's all of the above.
Oh.
But the process of Ho'oponopono was actually doing it in earnest. Not just talking about it, not just teaching it consciously, but living it and really embracing it and acknowledging, one, that you and I, we may have a body, but we're not a body. We're spiritual entities that happen to be traveling through this particular space in these vehicles. And the challenges of being in this vehicle was what was creating the problem, not the spiritual part of it. And so once I embraced that, I began to understand that if you're connected to source, there can only be abundance. And if you're connected to source and abundance, there's always enough. So I recognized something that a kupuna told me years and years ago about fear, that there's only two kinds, all the other phobias. And I had to say, what am I afraid of? What's really bothering me? And what he told me was fear comes in two packages. One is not having and the other is losing. Not having and losing. And as I began to explore all the phobias, there's some truth in that. I don't have my balance, I'm going to fall. Once I understood that I could tap into that abundance, then I can't lose what I don't have. And I have everything I need. And there's always going to be enough when you tap into that. And then I started really looking at our cultural principles and our practices and ended up listening to our great queen, Liliuokalani. An extension of my conversations with Auntie Pelahi about the principles of living, being, and extending aloha. And in one of her phrases, and I'll paraphrase it, Queen Liliuokalani says, to see without looking, which is a Lua principle, but also to know the unknowable. Now, she wasn't saying be a know-it-all, not by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, she was saying, if you know the one who knows all, which is the creator, divinity, I'o, Akua, whatever you want to call it, when you are connected and have that understanding, everything you need to know is there. You just need to ask. You have to have the humility to ask and to recognize you don't have to know it all, which is one of the things I grew up feeling like I had to know it all, right? Because when I was younger, I was 4, my dad said, well, you know better than that. I'm 4 years old. How am I supposed to know it? But with everybody saying that, because they recognize capacity, oh, you can do this, you can do this. So I was looking at these records, these messages that were being played throughout my childhood and into my adulthood. And that's what it came down to. So acknowledging that we're living in a space that's driven by scarcity and debt, which were the two things that I was dealing with at the time. And acknowledging that's only because I was holding on to these particular perceptions and beliefs in these systems, when in reality, that wasn't the case. That was a definition that I was giving power to. Once again, the externality defined by my reality, or defining my reality. And realizing that I was using other people's maps to navigate my journey when I really needed a better compass. But the maps that were given to me were for others' terrains, not the one I was in. So regardless of what I did, I could follow the map to the T and I would end up getting lost because it wasn't oriented to where I was at the time.
So where did you discover the compass?
Internally. I had to do a deep search, pretty much on my own, as a result of all that. Now, keep in mind, I had all these kupuna, right, elders, and the way they mentored provided me opportunity to learn. They don't tell you, do this. They said, take a look at this. Take a look at this. So there's a self-exploration. So once you understand it's coming from inside, not from outside, then it's yours. And the kupuna that I happen to be gifted with, time, in service to them, reciprocated by reflecting these kinds of thoughts. So I had that content to sit and pull through. And I could go through and see these people. Most of them are in their 80s. There are a few more. But if I just stop at 10 who spent time, I spent time with them and they reciprocated, that's about 800 years of experience. I had the benefit of sitting with these people and listening and hearing, and they reached their own self-actualization according to Maslow, right? So they had no barriers or obstacles to show me what they're saying. But more importantly, they are kind of telling me, stand on my shoulders and tell me what you see. They weren't hoarding it. They didn't keep it. They were freely sharing it. But they never said, you have to do this, do that. They said, here, up to you. And that really made a big difference to me. And then my mom just said, hey, these kupuna gave you this. It's not to put in the closet.
So would you consider your mom kumu to you then? The same
absolutely.
Way?
That's the first kumu, right? Your first kumu is your mom. Whether you're learning good, bad, or indifferent, you sit in her lap, you hear her voice, you hear her breath, you smell her breath. Oh, that's the first kumu. That's the first source of information. Every child sits in its mother's lap looking out at the world, presented to you by her presence, wherever that might be. How can that not be kumu? She was always kumu.
So your mom passed last year.
Yeah.
My mom passed last year, within a couple months of each other.
That's right.
Can you share a story about your mom that gives us a good picture of who she was to you?
There are several things I will always remember. But I remember I came home late one night, and there was an agreement. Be in by this time. For your good.
It's like a teenager.
teenager. But then it continued later on. And she said, when you make the decision to be late, you're stealing time because other people have made time for you. And when you're late, you're telling them that your time is more important than theirs and you're stealing their time. And that you should make an effort to be there when you say you're going to be there, which is more than just being on time, which is really about commitment. It's about accountability. And so if anything, she was the exclamation mark, right, on accountability, which I think we need more of these days, accountability, which really asks the question of how well. And so she instilled within me, my brother and sister, those values of how well are you behaving, how well are you living, how well have you fed others versus how much did you gain or how many did you do. This was the difference between a quantified life and a qualified life. And she and my father created a quality of life that allowed us to ask different questions, to venture into spaces that perhaps we would not have had we not felt that confidence, that love, that support, and identity of who we were. So we achieved levels of self-esteem very early. That was one of the clear moments that I always remember. That when you're late, you're stealing. You're stealing from other people, especially if you are intentional on it. And more so today, I see that happening. We're always asking for accommodations. I'll be there 20 minutes late. No, start 20 minutes earlier. That was her way of saying, be accountable. Make the necessary steps. Well, later on in life, other things like that came up, right? She goes, these kupuna gave you this information. What are you doing with it? That was reinforced after a certain point when this new Ho'oponopono phase came in as a result of a book that came out called Zero Limits. So this all goes back to Auntie Morna.
Who wrote the book?
Two guys wrote the book. Dr. Hugh Len, who was a part of the Ho'oponopono process. And I think this guy named Joe Vitale.
He's the one that promotes plenty online.
Yeah, so it's a more promotion thing, right? Yeah. But they took a cultural principle and took the fruit so far from the tree, it doesn't recognize the root anymore. At any rate, I had students from all walks of life in different parts of the world actually calling me, hey, Kumu, what's all
Also
this?
pretty different than from what Morna was...
Okay. Well, it's a distillation, right? It became a mantra. Most people know the mantra. But they're not the cleansing, right? The deeper cleansing. Now, suffice it to say, Auntie Morna did update it for contemporary use so that you and I, if you don't know Hawaiian, you're not living in Hawaii, you cannot do the rituals of actually finding the potato to dig up or get the limu kala to put on your head. You live anywhere, you're not going to be able to do that. Those are the rituals of the past. But you shouldn't be robbed from the opportunity to find forgiveness or to find centeredness. So she updated the process. So it's rooted in ancestral practice, but she brought it forward. The simplest process would be, let's say, being centered in self rather than self-centered. And there's acknowledging that, one, I have contributed to whatever the pilikia might be. And therefore, that's within me.
And the pilikia being the conflict.
Yeah, the conflict. So if you're showing me, and I'm sitting here angry at you, that anger is actually inside of me. And I've got to go back to that place, that memory that stimulated that, to the point where, simplify. Here's the pilikia, the problem. I turn my head like this, no problem. So that's what's happened. This mantra is turn your head. Because now I'm focusing on, I could say anything, rice, coffee. If I say it long enough, I redirect my focus from this. I'm not cleaning it up. I'm not changing it. More so, I'm not changing me. So what it means is that every time I turn like this, eventually I'm going to come around and see you again. And or someone
So it's not really doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Right.
It's like just symptoms versus the actual root issue.
Right. If people find comfort in something like that, great, keep doing it. But know what you're doing. You're not doing Ho'oponopono from the standpoint of the way our kupuna taught it. And every family had different ways of doing it. Kupuna, sit down, boy. What's your problem? Talk to your sister. Talk to your... So, you have this kukau kind of process. Auntie Morna was bringing it to the world so that you could do Ho'oponopono with yourself. Because the kupuna that you're having problem with, the friend, the person, they're gone already. And you're carrying around all this pilikia. You have to let it go. How do you do that? And how do you let them go too? So that's the process. But when we start taking it into what we call mantras, and Auntie Morna actually cautioned about that, the ritual, right? Because then something's missing because you're not actually doing the cleansing. And the oversimplification would be if you and I had a pile of dirt sitting on this table, right? And I have to cleanse it to get rid of it. I'm suggesting that's not cleansing. That's just refocusing my attention away from something that's painful, which is what happens to people. You have a bad relationship. You leave the relationship.
It's like a bypass.
It is. Or kick it down the road. Yeah. And some of us do it for generations. We do it culturally, right? So 100 years later, my descendants are having the same problem because I chose not to deal with it now, called it something else, and now we have multi-generational trauma. When in reality, it's my trauma. It's not my ancestors' trauma. They had all that happen to them, but I'm living it now. So it doesn't matter how many years. It could be yesterday, it could be 1,000 years. It's happening now.
This is typically in the presence of others or like by yourself, or how does it work?
You saw people doing it. It looked like they're sleeping. Deep meditation. In fact, guys like Joe Dispenza, right? They're imperializing the cultural, spiritual.
You mean
principle.
like whitewashing?
Could be, but they're taking the cultural, spiritual stuff out, and they're giving you scientific response. Part of your brain does
so it
this.
can make sense.
Right. At the end of the day, if you listen to the message, they say, well, there's still a spiritual experience. You're going to be out here. You're going to have manufactured healing and all that kind of stuff. Pono did that too. In fact, many cultures do it because they
just make it more palatable.
Yeah, it's more palatable. And we've had a trouble with religion and politics.
Yeah.
Right? I'm this, how can I be that? And I don't want to have to do this because I abandoned that. Oh, it's scientific, then I can do that. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, if it works, I'm all for it. People should do it. But I would like to say, don't call my grandmother's beef stew if you put chicken. If you change the recipe, then take accountability for the recipe. And more importantly, if divinity gifts you with a process or the ability to heal yourself or other people, honor divinity, honor the source. But don't call your grandmother's my grandmother's stew and you changed it. And if it doesn't work, don't blame my grandmother. And people are doing that to cultures. And I think there are a lot of people, because I'm speaking in these different groups, who are looking for a sense of belonging, a sense of knowing, a connection.
Everyone's looking for that.
Yeah, what we tend to do is attach ourselves to the people that seem to know what's going on, whether they do or not. Hey, you got it together. What are you eating? Who does your hair? How can I do that? So I see that happening culturally.
Okay. So is the process of Ho'oponopono as you were taught it stays exactly the same? Or is there some art around it too?
Yeah, because life is life. Culture is alive. It's not dead. It's not something that's in the museum.
But the basic process is the same steps.
Right. And I can walk you through it.
Yeah, I would like to hear it. Yeah.
It would be the spirit of Aloha and Ho'oponopono. Aloha being reciprocity, giving and receiving. Ho'oponopono making right. So please forgive me and my ancestors for whatever we did to you and your ancestors that created a situation that you and I are sitting here together right now so that we can hash this up, to set it straight so that we all can move forward. Your ancestors, my ancestors, you, me, and our descendants. That we can move forward and release this pilikia, this eha, this pain, this discomfort. Please forgive us. Now, in reciprocity of Aloha and Ho'oponopono, my ancestors and you and I forgive you and your ancestors for whatever you did to create the conditions in my life, that I live my life the way I do, that I'm here with you now, that I'm going to do the things I'm going to do, or make the decisions I do. What is it that causes me to react those ways? Yeah, or you in that way. Please forgive us as we now forgive you. Yeah. And it is in that wholeness and creating that we can now move forward. Not by bringing all the stuff with us, but by literally cutting it, letting it go, erasing it, and moving forward. That's a kind of dialogue that would be going on spiritually. So that if you're not in this room and you and I had pilikia from 50 years ago, you and I can have this conversation because it also acknowledges that as spiritual beings, there is no time. Yeah. That we're stuck in this physical time, the physics, which is very different from the spirit. So that's why it's a spiritual practice.
So it's not facilitated a lot of times.
It can be. So there are different methods. I'm saying the method that Auntie Morna brought forward, which is, it's an older method from the standpoint that before I got into the facilitated process, Tutu Man's going to bring us to the table. I'm doing my own already because I have to wash my hands before I touch the plate. He's going to give me the plate. I want to have clean hands.
Like do your own work first before you come.
Exactly. So if I'm being pulled to the table, I'm not going to the table with, okay, when everybody is ready to apologize, I'll say something. It's waiting for somebody else to forgive you, rather than saying, hey, sorry for whatever I did that created this problem. Can we talk about it? That's the humility of it. That's the accountability of it. Even to the point of understanding, we're getting into timelines, into time travel. That what I'm experiencing right now, the apple that's falling on my head, that's giving me a headache, comes from the forest of apple trees that I planted multiple generations ago as my great-great-grandfather 15 times removed. Mm-hmm. So who am I forgiving? Myself. Who do I hold accountable for the apple? Me. Now, whether I make apple pie or I throw the apple as a weapon, that's a decision that I can make right now. But I cannot blame somebody else, and I cannot blame the apple. What I want to do is acknowledge that this apple is an opportunity to learn or to continue fighting. But mahalo to my grandfather, who was me, and everybody in between that has had to deal with that apple because of what I did. So you may be that descendant who's now sitting in front of me, reminding me of the apple tree that I planted that's now falling on my head.
With the practice of Ho'oponopono, how are you asking your ancestors or guides to come in and help you, or are you trying to do this on your own?
No. There's nothing on your own.
Yeah.
We're all connected.
So you asking for help?
You're asking for help from divinity, God, Akua, in this case, I'o. And so that's the grand mediator. That's the grand programmer. So if I were looking at my computer today, I can move from a Windows to a Mac. How do I do that? I got to transfer all my content from there into this. So consider that each of us is moving computers, and I'm moving the memory from computer to computer. Your body's a computer. The computer programmer, or the programmer for the content, is divinity. There is somebody that's putting all the information in. That's the guy on the outside. That's your conscious mind. That's what I see, what I read, what I hear. But your subconscious mind, unihipili, that child within you, that's the thing that's transferring. So I can take the hard drive from this one and put it into that one. So everything from that one is now in this one, but I have more capacity. So I can learn more. So I can either bury it, every negative stroke is still in there, memory, or I can find a way of cleaning it out, my virus protection system. That's what Ho'oponopono is. So whatever is bothering me that's been carrying on from one generation to the next that is now in my computer memory, which is my subconscious mind, that has always been there. I can let it go. So this process is like a virus protection system, utilizing today's language, which is interesting because our kupuna already had this in the absence of this process. And having done this now for 30 plus years, I can actually call upon these new technologies to explain what our ancestors were doing, which is pretty wild. That's really interesting. But it does require us to shift our thinking from contemporary paradigms and beliefs.
So when we're doing this process, it's a mindful process. What is the parameters? You find a quiet space, away from others. What is the actual?
So let's look at mindfulness.
Okay.
First of all, we use the term. So mindful is acknowledging a full, complete mind. Your spiritual mind, your conscious mind, and your subconscious mind. 3 minds or 3 selves in the single. When those 3 minds, elements come together, that's when you're Pono. So when that happens, you're now mindful, complete, whole. And when you're mindful and complete and whole, you're now connected to source. Inspiration, inspiritu, stuff comes, enlightenment, all this stuff happens. And when you're in alignment with that source, you're also in line with all things that are also in alignment, which is why life moves so freely at that point. It's when one of those pieces are out, mentally, physically, in disorder, you're now out of order. You are out of your mind. You're no longer mindful, you're mindless. You're less one of those minds. So you begin to experience physical, mental, spiritual disconnection. So how do you reconnect? You do this process of Ho'oponopono. When we do it in a group, it's extremely powerful. When you do it by yourself, that's powerful too, because we're all connected anyway. My mind, body, and spirit are connected. And as that connection, I'm connected to you. And so what I do to clean me, I end up cleaning for you as well. If you show me something, I have to acknowledge, oh, brother just showed me something I got to start cleaning with. Instead, subscribe to the notion that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I may be the practitioner, but I'm the student. You're the teacher. The teacher is the question. The teacher is the problem. So when you bring your knee in, I look at myself. What is it about the knee? What it represents? How do I start cleaning that up? Because you're showing me what I've got to start working on. So once I clean that up internally, next week, no more knees, only shoulders. So what am I carrying from my ancestors? What's that thing that continues to be a burden that's bothering? Because that's why your shoulder is showing up. So mahalo to you for showing me that. This is the humility of it. It's not something you do to other people. It's something you do internally. You can do it anywhere, on a bus, on a plane, on the sidewalk. Most people will find comfort by going to a quiet place so that they can connect. But once you establish a relationship with divinity, and you know, and divinity knows you, then it's a constant conversation. And when you recognize that what I just done was not right, or this person is just showing me something that I got to clean up with, because it's like the fifth person I've seen this in. What's going on? That's the humility to be able to say, this isn't about them. This is really about me. Thank you for showing me that. As much as I disliked it, once I can clean it up, you can go do whatever you want after that. And if you and I want to have a relationship after, that's a conscious decision on our part to say, this was fun. Let's maintain that. But if not, thanks for showing me the negativity, and I can start moving on. Who am I to tell you what you should be doing in your life? Other than to say, thank you for showing me what I'm doing in my life that needs to be aligned. And it's instant. When you get into the protocol and you understand, it's not about, I gotta go retreat and go do my Ho'oponopono. You can do it instantly. And I've had opportunity to do it numerous times. I can't begin to tell you the value it brings. And I've seen other people experience it to the point where lifelong challenges overnight shift simply because of subscribing to that practice.
So is this something you can take me through right now?
Here's the experience. Unless you come over and slap me on the head, right? But you play the role. This is a literal experience. I was heading to meet my mom to take her to church. As I'm getting there, there's a detour. I was going to trick the system. I'm going to get there on time.
Yeah.
I'm coming to this intersection, and you're the driver on the other road. It's a T-bone. I'm going to make a left. You're coming up on the stop sign. As I make the left, you choose not to go to the stop sign. Okay? And actually hit me.
Okay.
Almost T-bone me. Spin me around. I'm spinning around. And while I'm spinning around, you're looking at me and you drive away. I have no idea where you're going, where you're coming from. All I know is in that moment that I got hit, I was looking you eye to eye. There was recognition, and you still hit me, and you drove away. Now, put yourself in the driver's seat now, where you're spinning around. What would your first response usually be?
Probably my first, it would be split second, would be fear, and then closely followed by anger.
Yes. And then what?
Probably shock.
So put all that in. And so now you have a moment, and that's when protocol sets in. What's the protocol when you have an accident? You're fine. Everything's good. What do you want to do next?
Be checking on my mom.
Okay. In this case, my mom wasn't with me. It's just us. Let's just say that if the person was in proximity, the typical response is, hey, you okay? Sorry, whatever. Here's my insurance card, right? That's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
That's Pono. Especially if you're not hurt. I still might be angry. You punk, Yeah, give me this. You go accountable. You got to talk to my attorney. We do that kind of conversation. Well, in this case, I didn't have the opportunity. That guy went, holy God, right? So I'm sitting there in the car. I get out, and another car pulls up. They saw the accident. They apologized to me. I go, why? So, we didn't get the license. I said, that's okay. Neither did I. Are you okay? Yeah, everybody's okay. So I get back in the car, and there's the other part. Yeah. What the heck was that? Right?
Yeah.
How could he do that? And fighting the urge to go chase him. And back to your earlier question, what would I have done in the earlier days? I probably would have chased them down, right? But instead, what I did was I sat in the seat and I started the Ho'oponopono process. That's where the training comes in. That's where that faith comes in and understanding. And it basically went the same way I just did with you. In my prayer was, please forgive me and my ancestors for whatever we have done to create this condition that you and I got to meet at this stop sign. You and I met at this stop sign, right? What did we do that created a condition that I got to sit here and watch and experience and witness fear, anxiety, even maybe cowardice. You ran. Please forgive us for whatever we did that created a condition in your life that enabled you to hit somebody and me to experience that and watch you run. What does that? What did we do, right? That created a condition, made it that easy for you to leave someone potentially harmed. I didn't even have the chance to apologize or even find out if you were okay because you ran. Please forgive me and my ancestors for creating any condition that has got that level of fear or disregard that I got to witness it. So what did I do in my past? When have I left someone standing on the road? When did I sideswipe somebody, right? This is the metaphor. Walking into a room and say something, that's stupid, and walk out. That's a sideswipe, right? Dad, I said, I don't have time. That's a sideswipe. When did I leave somebody else hanging in the middle of the street of life, wondering, what the heck was that, right? It's taking that moment and acknowledging that there's something that I got to learn from this. And you were the teacher. So I cannot hold you accountable for being the teacher, but I got to wonder why you, why me, why now? And so in that process, please forgive us for whatever it was we do, for showing me cowardice, fear, anxiety, the ability of disregard. Then Aloha steps in. That's the reciprocity. My ancestors and I forgive you and your ancestors for whatever it is you've done or continue to do that created a condition in my life, that there was a detour that brought me here today so that I can be here for you to hit.
And you forgiving them, including that act that just happened?
That's correct. Everything. Because that act is just the sharpening of the pencil, right? All the way back. So I have to ask, so what is it in your life? Is it something like you don't have enough hours at work? I was in a financial situation. Maybe you're in a financial situation. You're concerned that you don't have insurance. If the cops come, you're going to get pulled over, right? May that change for you. That's the prayer. Please forgive us, or we forgive you, right? But more importantly, you got to answer to your ancestors and your descendants. It's not on me. So I'm going to get out of your way. Please forgive us as I forgive you so that you can do what you need to do to make this right with your ancestors and your descendants. It's not between me and you anymore. So by me letting you go, I'm not pulling you into lunch with me. You got to go lunch with your family. I'm going to have lunch with my mother. I'm going to go to church, right? Because I'm no longer dragging you around saying, I don't like you. Through my whole life, I can't stand you, come with me. You know people that do that, right? You know, this guy, and they take you wherever they go. It has nothing to do with the person anymore. So in that moment, doing that process, you're letting go, right? It doesn't release that person from their accountability. It doesn't release them from their responsibility to make things right. What it does is releases you, releases me from having to carry around that anger, that fear, that anxiety. I can go have lunch. It was done, right? Then I went to the police department, filed the report in case I need to go insurance. But then I also said, brother, there's a guy out there. He's running around in his truck. He might hit somebody else. You might just keep an eye on him, right? That's my duty to the community. But my prayer for him was, may your mother, your children, your descendants never have to face somebody like that, right? Because if you don't clean it up, likelihood is they will. That's how this works. That's just the energy of it. That was an instance where that Ho'oponopono was instantly applied, right? Because in the process, you make a connection. And so what I'm expressing to you is what goes on once you make that connection. I don't carry anger. At that moment, I could have, but I didn't. And I'll say all the instances since and before where that was a possibility, through the process of Ho'oponopono, I can let it go. There's lessons to be learned from it. And I can share it with other people without malice, without anger, which is really important. It's really a connection, an internal connection through prayer, through meditation. Prayer is out and meditation is in. That's the reciprocity. So aloha again, same idea.
So if I was the student coming in and then you were walking me through this, like for my own stuff, then what would that be? Like, try that.
Well, give me an example of what you might be having a difficulty with. This is not the process now. This is what we would be talking about, because the process is a little
Yeah. You're teasing it out so we know what we're actually dealing with at hand. I don't know if it needs necessarily a Ho'oponopono, but I would say it's my ability to freely approach and move toward what my koho'ia is.
Okay, well, explain that for somebody that's listening
Right?
that may not know what koho'ia is.
So the koho'ia, in my understanding, is when your destiny chooses you. It pulls you and you have no choice. So to me, that koho'ia has shown up within the last couple of years as I need to be convening spaces where healing can occur. I only do it in limited amounts. I typically do individual session work. And for some reason, I don't want to, and I keep getting forced back into it.
So by arriving at that conclusion, there's certain assumptions or beliefs that you have that leads you to that conclusion.
Right.
What is that?
The conclusion that what? That I'm not doing it?
That you're creating convening or
that I should be?
or places.
That I should be?
For healing. Why that?
Because it always comes back to the forefront of my consciousness. And then also when I tend to do other things, then I get physically hurt.
So that's the seed. That's the part you go to. So at some point in there, your mind, your subconscious mind speaking to you is saying that this is how we make it whole. This is how we heal. Which is really saying somewhere down the path, I was the perpetrator. I created a condition. I dug a hole, metaphor, that someone else fell in. Broke the leg. I might have helped them fix the leg, but I still left the hole, which means many people fell in the hole later. I've never filled the hole. See, Ho'oponopono is that. It's not only saying, I'm sorry for you falling in the hole. It's filling the hole so that nobody else falls. So if you haven't filled the hole in the past, you're facing that hole. And every time someone comes up, every time you have to do these sessions, you're being reminded, brother, you got to fill the hole. And so this is your way of trying to fill the hole. But in reality, you haven't filled the hole. You're still dealing with the symptoms of that.
Okay.
So what you want to do is go back and say, when did I create this problem? When was that? Okay. And you don't have to know exactly when, but acknowledge that at some point in time in the past, you are the source of the very problem that you're trying to heal in front of you. That person is simply the trigger, right? And what I want to ask myself is, well, why is Evan showing this to me right now? When was I the source of this problem that is now in front of me? And then not only helping you, but realizing that you are actually helping me. Go back, forgive, ask for forgiveness for everything since then. Every ancestor, every person that was a victim of that particular action on my part that I'm now looking at in front of me. Once I can okay that, I can release that. Now, they're sitting there in the past going, oh, thanks, bro. I've been waiting for this forgiveness. I've been waiting to release. But right now, you got the toe egging on my neck, and you dragging me wherever you go. Once I unhook, I hui that thing. Now, they're gone. You've literally changed the past. Okay. There's several layers. There's karmic cleansing. There's personal cleansing, familial cleansing. So there's different levels. I do one-on-ones people call. What we really do is talk through, and it always reveals himself. I have no history with these people. And it just comes up. Where did this come from? Why do I keep seeing this? The last 3 marriages I had, same guy, different name, but same person. The last 4 jobs, same problems. Why? It's a conspiracy. The common denominator is always us. So the Ho'oponopono process is to acknowledge that, right? It is us. It's our accountability. And mahalo to those outside who are triggering us. Thank you for the triggers. So a big part of it is gratitude. There's aloha, and then there's mahalo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mahalo for that.
One day's sorrow is another day's blessing. It's always in the moment.
When you were doing that, was from memory or you just going?
Yeah.
What was coming to you during that? You seeing anything? You feeling anything? Or you just doing the process?
Yeah, no, I'm doing it for me as well. So when I'm doing it with you, I'm doing it with you. So that anything that you triggered within me, I can be releasing as well. Yeah. Because there's a reason. And in many ways, I'm in the same situation you are. I have to ask myself, why do I keep doing Ho'oponopono? What was it about me that was such a chucklehead that I've got to be teaching this or sharing it worldwide? I must have been a real knucklehead that I have to stand in front of 1,000 people and talk to them about this. So yeah, that's my karma, if you would.
Was it shown to you? You saw the why or no?
No. It's acknowledging at some point in time, and this has come up before, right? Is that we have certain gifts that we misuse. And I misused one of those gifts at another time that created pilikia, right? And so rather than use it, I just abandoned it, stepped away from it, right? And in the process, continued the pilikia, right? Which is just running away. So I have millennia now. If we assume any of this has to do with the non-time of time and the spiritual time. So this operates on natural, spiritual, and artificial time. We just did an artificial time, but we tapped into natural and spiritual time, which is timeless, right? We just happen to be focusing on it now. It's the old record player, the needle that happens to be on song 3 rather than song 1. It's all one life, multiple lives, one record. But depending on where I put the needle, I can go back and erase or listen. It's just a matter of focus.
So do I need to keep doing the practice over and over?
It's recommended. Well, if it keeps coming up, then we haven't cleansed with the particular issue yet. In fact, you may have just been cleansing with the symptom. That's what happens. So people see the symptom. Oh, this guy's calling me. How do I stop John from calling me bad names? Well, that's not the problem. The problem is identity, not name calling. I think I'm somebody else, but they keep calling me something else. I don't like that. So that's a symptom. The real problem is my identity. So now I got to go back and cleanse with identity. Who am I? What am I all about? Where did I come from? See, there's a tendency for us to go to the surface. But like an onion, you got to go through the layers and layers and layers. Even from who your parents were, who your school, all of the things that have layered the way we see the world.
Does your belief system hold past life?
Absolutely. That's what this is.
Okay, yeah. So past life of my past life versus an ancestral lineage.
Okay, that's good. Good question. So many of us will look at our DNA ancestors. Really, ancestors, anybody before you that's had an impact on you, right? Your teacher, your mailman. To a certain degree, they're all ancestors that came before you. But we have the DNA ancestor, mother, father, their mother, father. And after you go back how many generations? That's a lot of people. But that's still only this incarnation. If you subscribe to life continuums, coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out, and in Christianity they call it everlasting life. However you want to define it, you've had a classroom experience, you're bringing that knowledge into this one, and you're going to have another one. How many before, how many after, I have no idea. Each of us is different. But presuming that this classroom you're in right now, you brought a lesson from the last one that you didn't really learn. You're now here learning it. And you consciously make a decision that in the next classroom, I don't want to take this with me. I want to learn something different. I want to get this done today. Ho'oponopono. So that you can now learn the next thing. I'll be free. I'll be clear. No barriers. Teach me. Because my whole spiritual experience is to learn. For what? To go back. Where? To source. It's pretty much what most people have understood who are in the spiritual practices and planes. So it does say that you have a body, I have a body, but I'm a spirit inside this body. And that spirit moves from body to body, time to time, class to class. So yeah, we call that reincarnation. Some people do. Others have a very difficult time with that idea because we're very tied to the central experience of being in the physical. That's called physics. But once you get into the metaphysics, into the spiritual principles, you now have methods of actually dealing with that. So if that's the case, then we have to consider the idea that what I'm experiencing here is not just the physical DNA memories, but all of the spiritual DNA that I might have been one Portuguese in another lifetime, I was Chinese in another, I was part British in another time. And anytime those particular names or experiences bother me, when I see a Brit and it bugs me, that's probably because something that in that lifetime bugs me today. So I'm not only dealing with my physical DNA, but my spiritual DNA. Meaning, in another spiritual incarnation, in another body, in another place, you had to learn all these things. So somebody from that experience comes into your life today. They're reminding you of that, and you have the opportunity now to make that right. Okay? So a lot of people say, well, he's not related to me. That's not physically, but spiritually, we're all related. We all come from the same source. So it's subscribing to that paradigm shift that begins to open the door to opportunity to cleanse. And the presumption is that we all started out from one flame. Another metaphor, we're all drops of rain from the same ocean. Thing is, do we remember? At some point, our aspiration is to go back, is to rejoin that one mind, that one connection. And if you subscribe to those principles, then these are methodologies, the mechanics that help us find greater meaning. Our challenge today in the physical is we get stuck in mechanics. We lose meaning. My intention, or at least the guidance I've gotten, is to provide meaning. What does it mean to be whole? What does it mean to be a human being or being human rather than just a human being something? They call us...
Or a human doing.
Yeah. A human becoming. We're not called human becoming. I find that through the process of Ho'oponopono and Lua and these other principles, it enables you to be present, be open, but be something in the process of becoming something else. But if you're never anything in the first place, how do you know you've become what you've been aspiring to do, right? So the intention is to be present, to be whole, to be available. And once you let the universe know that, stuff happens. Because now you've actually said, okay, you're ready. So when my wife transitioned in 2020, my dad before that, my mother most recently, it's constant, how do I go back to doing what I was doing yesterday? These are dynamic, dramatic shifts in one's consciousness and awareness. Knowing that they're still there. I still wear my wedding band because I didn't stop being married when my wife made her transition. Her spirit just got too big for the physical being. She's just living in a place where her spirit can now live fully. We still have interaction. There's still an ability to communicate because my belief system acknowledges that I am more than this. And unfortunately, this becomes a challenge when you are aspiring to live in a multidimensional view. Now, to the casual passerby listening to this, these guys are crazy. But if you subscribe to this larger principle, it's like we've never really left that space. It's not we're going to go out someplace. It's like a fish in a fish tank, and the fish tank is in the ocean, right? You take the fish out of the fish tank, it's still in the ocean. I like to suggest our spirit beings is inside this vehicle that's inside the spiritual space. We never left that space. We just happen to be contained inside of a physical container inside that larger space, and we're interacting in and out of that space. But it's not, I was in this spiritual space, and I went over there, and I'm going to come back over here, which is an external thing. Which means you and I are in the same space.
So, can we talk about your wife?
Yeah. Her name was Carolyn.
Yeah. She passed, she was sick, huh?
Yeah, it was a weird thing, because we were all pretty athletic and physical fitness was a big thing. I ran health clubs for a while, She was an aerobic instructor, yoga, eat well. She was probably one of the first women bodybuilders in the state of Hawaii. That kind of history. Then in 2017, she started feeling breathless.
Oh.
But if you recall, at the time, some of us think that was maybe the precursor to COVID. People were coughing, all this kind of stuff. We didn't have a name for it. So she just thought it was a cold. Well, come Thanksgiving, we're off on the continent visiting family. I had a conference to do. So by Thanksgiving, she was just in pain already. So we took her to ER, and they discovered lung cancer. Complete shock.
Non-smoker, huh?
Non-smoker.
My mom had.
Yeah. Which is kind of weird, right? So Doc, what's the story with this? And because of our health level at the time, we weren't seeing physicians. So she never went. Why? Everybody else is coughing, right? So finally, when it just got too painful, she finally went. And the doctor says, so has anyone talked to you about the cancer? We're like, what cancer? So she had lung cancer. And so we proceeded to go after treatment and stuff like that. So for 3 years, we're going back and forth to the Center for Cancer Treatment in Phoenix.
Is that Mayo?
No, American Cancer or Cancer Treatment Center of America or something.
So you did the full chemo and all that?
Well, that's what we ended up doing because that's all they had at the time. But there are different forms of it. Yeah.
You had the pill one, the EGFR one?
Yeah. So that's what they found out, right, that there's a genomic response.
Yeah.
This is early on. It's now improved since, including, So we managed to prolong it, right? And at the time, which I thought was interesting, was they treat it more like a acute disease, right? Like diabetes. You're going to live with cancer rather than die from cancer. Nice reframe, right? But the Cancer Treatment Center of America was a godsend, as far as I was concerned, right? Because not once did they treat her like she was sick. Beautiful, right? Everybody there, oddly enough, because my work was in Aloha, visitor industry, all that kind of stuff, every single person there was demonstrating Aloha. Hey, Mrs. Taum, you know. In fact, people were coming to see her because she was so bright, even with her illness and disease, which was an interesting lesson for me as the kanaka, as the kane, right? To be able to protect my wife and my family. But the courage, unbelievable. No complaints. Yeah? It's hurting, bother, that kind of stuff. But no outward, outbursts. And then there was a recovery. Hey, wow, everything's all good. And then a steep decline right after that. This was just as COVID was starting. But at that point, you recognized she'd been working on herself, spirit, everything. Spirit just got too big for the vehicle. So it was a blessing. I don't know if the terms actually match, but it's this notion of, I'm going to say, relief and at the same time devastation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Devastated relief. It's like, oh man, but
one part's like, I'm glad you're out of pain, and another one's like, I miss you so bad.
Yeah.
Same time.
Yeah. My mom was like that recently. I mean, literally talking, like you and I talking right here, right? 2:00 in the afternoon. Mom, I got a meeting. Go. Come back. She's in the hospital. I took her there on a Sunday. By Saturday, they're calling me. I had just left. I get into my meeting. I get the call. Oh, Mr. Taum, your mom's in ICU. What? I got back to the hospital before they got her to the room. But she was talking with me and gone, just like that.
She was talking to you and then passed away right there?
After I left.
Oh,
she was
yeah.
like talking to the nurses and
Yeah,
everything. They tried some new medication, right? And somebody missed something in that. Come back and it's like, wait a minute, you're just standing here. We're just talking to us. It's not like somebody's driving around, and you can say, But see, this is Ho'oponopono, and everything comes in, Aloha, and understanding these principles. Because my sister and brother and I said, so how would we want it to be, right? Would we rather see somebody deteriorating, lying on the floor? I've been there, done that, not fun, right? So to a certain degree, it's respecting the fact that at some point in her cellular memory, she made a decision to do that. Even to the point where she said, go, right? So I wasn't present to experience that. She took all of that off the table. What a gift. Devastated relief.
Yeah.
Right? So if we subscribe to these other fears and anxieties that I think society keeps putting on, that sucks. But when I looked at it, I said, well, what better way to go?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, as far as the doctor was concerned, she didn't feel pain.
Still sad though, yeah.
It is. It's still
like
grades on me like,
yeah.
Wait a minute. You're the doctor. You're supposed to know this kind of stuff. But that just goes to show the practice. On the other end, when my daughter came into the world, she came in as a C-section, right? Mm-hmm. I have to acknowledge, and I told my wife this, if it weren't for someone else's daughters or children's not making it, our daughter wouldn't be here. So we have to mahalo all those people who had to experience that kind of pain and loss so that the medical world can learn from this so that we have our daughter today. Mahalo all those people. That's how this is. Same thing. I cannot bring her back. In fact, I know she's better off. I know that for a fact. But chasing the anger, chasing what if, shoulda, coulda, that's the hard part. So that's where there's Ho'oponopono for survivors. There's Ho'oponopono for caregivers. And that's my calling now. I have people. If I put it off, I honor my wife. I didn't want to do Ho'oponopono for caregivers. It's like too blatant. But now I've been asked, and I've lived through it now. I can see it as a lived experience, not a self-proclamation type of thing. It's evident. It's clear. I've lived through
That's
it.
the hardest job. Bro, that one is hard.
Yeah. Well, especially in our society, right? I think we share the ideas. We're going to take care of our couple, our
Yeah,
families,
it's hard.
Right? Yeah, it's rough. But I see other people walk away from it. They have no problem with it.
Most live in the mainland. But
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Especially when you can leave the bones of your ancestors and go someplace else. Us, we still take care of that. That's our societal, cultural. But when you look at the larger spiritual thing, so condolences to you and your family. Ours is, yesterday was probably the rough one, yeah.
I hung out at the graveyard actually a couple hours yesterday just by myself. Brother and them were like, what you doing over there? I was like, Nice day. I'm just cruising.
Yeah. The year of first. Same thing with my wife. It was like the first birthday, the first anniversary. Yesterday was the first Mother's Day. The first year is always, well, I've now experienced it a couple of times, with my dad. And there was a time when all of the kupuna, all the elders who were my mentors, they all checked out one after another.
Was it recent in the last 5 years?
Yeah, the last 10 years. That 5 years. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, father, mother, all this. I think about my daughter. My daughter, she lost her grandfather, my father, 2017. Diagnosis of her mother, cancer. The year later, her grandmother transitions. Right after that, her mother-in-law passes, and then her mom. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
For one person to deal with. Then to have a child. My granddaughter is now beautiful, 2 years old.
That's a lot.
So I'm grandmother and grandfather. Love it, but to see that fortitude, and I like to think because we provided her with a safe place to know herself well enough and know that she was loved. That was a big thing when she was younger. I told her, there are going to be days when you and I are not going to agree. In fact, you might be angry at me, and me at you, but I'll always love you. The permission to make mistakes, because it's okay. I thank my parents for that, because that's what they did for us,
If you could only leave one last message for your daughter, and you would never talk to her again, you would only have this piece on the clip, what would you say?
How much I love her, how proud I am. That the life and the person and the woman that she's become, the mother that she is, the wife and spouse that she's become, but the person. She is her ancestors. She's embodied them all. And she's found a way to direct that energy. No malice, no anger. It's a beautiful thing to see, the compassion. And it's evidenced. Every time she goes into a place, the animals come. Cats, dogs, birds. They know. So that's what I would say to her. But more importantly, thank you for choosing me, as your guide. I learned a lot. I continue to learn a lot every day. Yeah. So.
Okay. So the way that it reads, it says, connect to love, I am love, and ask the guides. Right?
Beautiful.
So connect to love is that everything is that energy of love. And since I come from this physical body and so on comes from that energy of love, I'm therefore love. And then ask the guides was, I can ask my spiritual guides, ancestors, whatever they may be, that for help and to have help. I think in today's conversation that was shown in what you were saying as well, in a different way, but kind of the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would kind of summarize it in a way that it's all love. Some of us focus on the anger and the hate, which is just less love. So if you have the spectrum, less or more love, hate or less hate, anger, less anger, fear, less fear, flip it. It's only love or less love. So if you're going to bring it to balance, just more love. That's really what it comes down to. And if you don't know how, ask, right? But to recognize that's who we are. So I am love. I tend to start and work with groups by everyone just starting saying I am. When everybody says that together, you see the resonance. Everybody is I am. But once we add our particular name to it, I am John, I am Ramsay, and we all say that together, it all breaks down. Everything breaks down once we throw that personality in. But when we all acknowledge I am, we are all I am, then it's no longer Ramsay to Evan, it's I to I. That inner you talking to the inner me, they were communicating at a completely, this is called communion. The rest of it's communicating. Then we can commune at that level. No words. You don't have to say anything.
Beautiful.
Mahalo for the time, bro. It's been a while.
Is there anything that we didn't discuss today that you wanted to, or you feel we missed?
I think applying it to the contemporary time and space, which is a lot of uncertainty. And people, whether it's politics or religion or finances, there's always going to be uncertainty. But the one thing that is certain is uncertainty, right? And so if that's the case, then let's focus on what we can focus on, which is us, how we behave, how we respond, and the choices we make, finding what that compass is. And if we can define that, then it becomes more meaningful. It's understanding that we are faced with a process, a system that in many ways has edified scarcity and fear. And yet we are connected to abundance, and sustainability being the wrong word, but we can. He said, yeah, this too shall pass. Mm-hmm. But for those of us that are subscribing to fear and even to the predictions of the end times, I'm hearing this a lot. Oh, these are the end times. Everybody's had end times, which really means beginning times. It's a spectrum. So if people want to subscribe to that, these are the times of revelations. Damn right. A lot of things are being revealed, which is just another word for Armageddon. People are forcing that to come through. I'm watching it. People say, it's this. I like to subscribe to the idea that if that's the case, let's just say it is. If that's the case, the spectrum of that story is 1,000 years of peace, right? I mean, if we want to go there, then let's go there. Because after this so-called turmoil and tribulations, or whatever people want to call it, I think we were promised 1,000 years of peace. And if you want to live up to promises, bring it. I think that's a perspective that I think Lua and other things, it's just a punch. But I used to catch, and I had people throwing 100-mile speedballs at me. If I saw that as a problem, I'd be ducking. Instead, I was catching and pitching it back. That's what this is. How do you define that thing's coming at us? Is it fear or is it opportunity? Can I learn from it? Can I move on? That's coming, whatever it is. But if we live a life of when this occurs, then I'm always in preparation. As one of my friends says, preparation or preparedness is best done in advance. Mm-hmm. So if 1,000 years of peace is coming, then let's prepare for it. Let's start focusing on peace. Let's find peace. Let's extend peace and offer peace to others who are in dis-ease or disorder. But it starts with us. As a cliche, it does start with us. And if I can't operate from that, then how can I expect others? So as one Kupuna said, when there's peace in the person, there's peace in the home. He actually started when there's peace in the heart, there's peace in the person. There's peace in the person, peace in the home and the family, peace in the community, peace in the world. So it starts, it's all an inside job. And so, yes, we have to be conscious of what's going on around us, but we're defining all of that from inside out. And it starts with love, to be connected. And when you don't know, ask, to your point. Mm-hmm. Ask your kupuna, ask those that have experienced it, but ask the source.
Well, I just want to acknowledge you, Kumu Ramsay. Thank you for coming and sharing the space with me today, sharing the mana'o, all your teachings, the peace you are spreading in the world, and the Ho'oponopono session today. Yeah, appreciate it.
Hey, meiki. No big thing. Mahalo, brother. No. Thanks for having me.
If you resonate with Greater Good Radio, please join our community at www.greatergoodradio.com, where you can get access to exclusive content and offerings. Hope to see you soon.